The distress call. The 7 moons of Velrethi Prime cast their silver light across the crystalline spires of the High Council chamber. Ambassador Liran stood before the emergency assembly, her translucent skin pulsing with the blue-green bioluminescence that betrayed her anxiety. The chamber, designed to accommodate 300 council members, now held barely 50, all that remained of the Velrathi's governing body. The Terralist system has gone dark, Liran announced, her voice steady despite the gravity of her words. That marks the 17th system lost to the swarm in 40 cycles. High Elder Nevix, his carapace weathered with age, leaned forward on his hovering platform. The evacuation. Partial success. Approximately 62% of the population reached the jump gates before they were destroyed. Liran's inner membranes flickered, the Velrathi equivalent of a pained wince. 8 million souls lost. A somber vibration passed through the assembled council members, their collective grief manifesting in the harmonics that filled the chamber. The Velrathi had long prided themselves on their 1,000-year peace, their advancement beyond violence, their elegant solutions to cosmic challenges. None of it had prepared them for the swarm. Elder Morath, head of the Defense Directorate, activated the central hologram. A 3-dimensional map of the Velrathi Concord territories appeared, with 17 systems glowing red, consumed. A wave of darkness spread steadily toward the core worlds. At current velocity, the swarm will reach our home system in 26 cycles, Morath stated. Our defensive arrays have proven ineffective. Our shield technology cannot withstand prolonged exposure to their corrosive field. The Galactic Concord's response. Nevix asked. Liran's bioluminescence dimmed noticeably. The Concord has withdrawn support. They have established a quarantine barrier 3 sectors away and declared our situation containment priority. The chamber erupted in harmonics of shock and betrayal. The Velrathi had been founding members of the Galactic Concord, had shared their technological innovations freely, had mediated countless interspecies conflicts. They abandon us to preserve themselves, Elder Tevith said, her voice cutting through the cacophony. After all we have contributed. Logical from a certain perspective, Morath replied, though his skin pulsed with barely contained outrage. The swarm consumes all. Technology, biomass, energy. Every system it takes makes it stronger. The Concord believes sacrificing our sector will buy them time to find a solution. Then we stand alone, Nevix said, his ancient voice weighted with finality. Liran moved to the center of the chamber, her slender form casting a long shadow in the moonlight. Not necessarily, High Elder. There is one option we haven't explored. The council focused their compound eyes on her with sudden intensity. I speak of the species from the isolated arm of the galaxy, the ones the Concord deems too volatile for full membership. The humans. Morath's carapace plates shifted in surprise. They are barely 4 centuries into space exploration. Their technology is rudimentary compared to ours. Yet they've expanded rapidly, Liran countered. They've established colonies across 36 systems without the benefit of Concord assistance, and they possess something we lack, a military. The word itself caused discomfort among the council. The Velrathi had dismantled their war machines centuries ago, converting military infrastructure into scientific and cultural institutions. Their defense arrays were automated, designed for protection against cosmic phenomena and the occasional space pirate, not planetary invasion. The humans retain martial capability because the Concord refuses them membership, Elder Tevith noted, an irony that might now serve us. Nevix's ancient eyes studied Liran. You suggest we ask these warriors for assistance. The Concord explicitly forbids technology sharing with non-member species. The Concord has already abandoned us, Liran replied, her tone hardening. And I believe we have misunderstood the humans. The Concord portrays them as primitive and aggressive, but my diplomatic analysis suggests something different. They are protective, fiercely so, of those they consider under their care. A primitive instinct, Morath remarked. Perhaps, Liran acknowledged, but one that might save our people. High Elder Navix was silent for several moments, his compound eyes reflecting the holographic display of their dying empire. Finally, he spoke. The emergency quantum transmitter. It was designed to reach the furthest corners of the galaxy. Yes, Liran confirmed. We could send a distress call directly to their territory. The Concord would consider it a violation of protocol, Tevith warned. We are already facing extinction, Navix replied. Protocol seems a minor concern. He turned to the assembly. We will vote. Those in favor of requesting human assistance. The chamber filled with the soft blue glow of affirming bioluminescence. Not a single elder remained dark. It is decided, Navix declared. Ambassador Liran, prepare the transmission. In the communications center beneath the council chamber, Liran worked with the technical team to calibrate the quantum transmitter. The ancient device had never been used outside of tests, a relic from a more uncertain time in Velrathi history. The message must be clear and concise, she instructed. Translate into all known human languages. Include our stellar coordinates and basic information about the swarm. Emphasize the immediate threat to sentient life. As the technicians worked, Moreth approached Liran. Do you truly believe they will come? He asked privately. They know nothing of us. We have never had formal contact. Why would they risk their lives for strangers? Liran's inner membranes pulsed with uncertainty. In my study of human communication intercepts, I've observed a consistent pattern. They cherish an ideal they call heroism, the notion that the strong have a duty to protect the weak, even at great personal cost. It's embedded in their entertainment, their histories, their philosophies. A cultural mythology, Moreth suggested skeptically. Perhaps, or perhaps a truth we have forgotten in our long peace. Liran watched as the technicians finalized the transmission. I believe they will come because they will see themselves in our plight. And because, unlike the Concord species, humans seem to make decisions with their emotions as much as their logic. That is why the Concord keeps them at arm's length, Moreth noted. Yes, Liran agreed. And it might be why they will save us when the Concord would not. The chief technician approached. Ambassador, the quantum transmitter is ready. Liran moved to the central console and placed her six-fingered hand on the activation panel. The ancient machine hummed to life, drawing enormous power from the planet's core. Transmission begins in 3 pulses, the technician announced. Liran composed herself, then spoke clearly into the receiver. This is Ambassador Liran of the Velrathi Concord. Our civilization faces imminent extinction from an entity we call the Swarm, a space-borne collective organism that consumes all matter and energy in its path. 17 star systems have already been lost. Our defenses have failed. Our allies have abandoned us. We request any assistance humanity can provide. We have little to offer in return except our gratitude and the knowledge that you saved a peaceful species from oblivion. Our coordinates follow. The quantum transmitter pulsed, sending her message instantly across thousands of light years to a region of space the Velrathi had never visited, to a species they knew only through distant observation and Concord warnings. Now, Liran said quietly as the transmission completed, we wait. 16 days later, Liran was reviewing evacuation plans for the outer colonies when a junior technician burst into her chamber, forgetting all protocol in his excitement. Ambassador, the long-range sensors, they're detecting something. Liran rushed to the monitoring center, where the staff stood transfixed by the main display. The quantum space around Velrathi Prime was distorting, revealing multiple entry points forming simultaneously. Is it the Swarm? She asked, dread filling her voice. Have they accelerated their advance? No, Ambassador, the chief monitor replied, his voice hushed with awe. These are controlled quantum jumps, hundreds of them. Synchronized. The first ship emerged from quantum space, a sleek vessel of dark metal with pulsing blue engines. Its design was unlike anything in Concord records. Within moments, another appeared, then 10 more, then dozens. They're positioning themselves in a defensive perimeter around our system, the tactical analyst reported with disbelief. Over 400 vessels so far, and more are still emerging. A communication request pinged on the main console. With trembling fingers, Liran accepted it. A holographic image formed, a bipedal being with dark skin, close-cropped hair, and a uniform adorned with symbols of rank. The human's face had none of the Velrathi's insectoid features, yet Liran could read determination in those alien eyes. "This is Admiral Kiran Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said, speaking perfect Velrathi thanks to their translation systems. "We received your distress call. The UEDF First Fleet has been dispatched to your location with full defensive and counteroffensive capabilities." Liran struggled to maintain her diplomatic composure. "Admiral Chen, I am Ambassador Liran. The Velrathi people are. We are overwhelmed by your response. We didn't expect. You didn't expect us to come at all." Chen finished with a slight smile. "Or perhaps not in such numbers. Let me be clear, Ambassador. When someone calls for help, humanity answers. It's what we do." "The swarm is unlike any enemy you may have faced," Liran cautioned. "It adapts to energy weapons, absorbs technology, grows stronger with each victory." "So we've gathered from your transmission data," Chen nodded. "That's why we've brought specialized equipment and personnel. I request permission to send a delegation to your world for immediate strategic coordination." Liran's compound eyes widened. "Of course, Admiral. We welcome your delegation with the highest honors." "Excellent. And Ambassador." Chen's expression softened slightly. "Tell your people they're not alone anymore. The fleet of humanity stands with the Velrathi." As the transmission ended, Liran turned to find Elder Moreth standing behind her, his carapace rigid with shock. "They came," he whispered. "So many ships, so quickly." "Yes," Liran replied, a new emotion flowing through her bioluminescent patterns. "Hope. It seems I underestimated them. We all did." Above their world, the human fleet continued to emerge from quantum space, taking defensive positions around the Velrathi system. Ships of varying sizes and designs, all moving with practiced precision, creating a wall of protection between the Velrathi and the approaching swarm. The species that the Galactic Concord had deemed too volatile, too emotional, too unpredictable for membership, had answered a stranger's call for help with the largest military force the Velrathi had ever witnessed. And for the first time since the swarm appeared on their borders, the Velrathi dared to believe they might survive. The unlikely alliance. The human delegation arrived on Velrathi Prime 6 hours after the fleet's appearance. Their shuttle, a sleek, angular craft that seemed designed for both atmosphere and space combat, descended through the crystalline towers of the capital city, causing citizens to gather in wonder at the unprecedented sight. Ambassador Liran waited on the ceremonial landing platform along with the High Council and a hastily assembled honor guard. The Velrathi, having no military, had repurposed their ceremonial guardians, tall, elegant beings in flowing crystalline armor that hadn't seen actual combat in centuries. The shuttle's doors opened with a hydraulic hiss, and 5 humans emerged. Admiral Chen led the group, flanked by 2 officers in different uniforms and 2 individuals in what appeared to be civilian attire. Ambassador Liran. Chen greeted with a formal bow that the Admiral's staff had clearly briefed him on. "Thank you for receiving us so quickly. The urgency of our situation demands it." "Admiral," Liran replied, returning the gesture. "May I present High Elder Nevix and the remaining Council of Elders." As formal introductions proceeded, Liran observed the humans closely. They moved differently than Velrathi, more direct, less fluid, with a contained energy that seemed constantly ready to be released. Their emotional states were difficult to read without bioluminescent signaling, but she sensed both caution and curiosity in their expressions. Chen introduced his team. Commander Yasmin Reyes, Tactical Operations, Lieutenant Darius Wang, communications specialist; Dr. Eleanor Mbeki, cynobiologist specializing in collective organisms; and Professor James Takeda, quantum physics and weapons development. Elder Tevith's antennae twitched with surprise. "You brought scientists as part of your first military delegation." Dr. Mbeki, a tall woman with close-cropped silver hair, smiled. "In our experience, Elder, understanding an enemy is the first step to defeating it. We need to know what the swarm is, how it thinks, how it evolves." "Indeed," High Elder Nevix said. "Let us continue this conversation in the council chamber. We have prepared our data on the swarm for your analysis." As they moved through the soaring architecture of the Velrathi capital, Liran noticed the humans taking in everything with keen interest. Lieutenant Wong was especially attentive, his eyes constantly moving between the buildings, the Velrathi citizens, and some kind of scanning device on his wrist. "Your civilization is extraordinary," Professor Takeda remarked to Liran as they walked. "The integration of biological and crystalline technology is unlike anything I've seen." "We have had many millennia to refine our approach," Liran replied. "Though I understand humans have achieved remarkable technological advancement in a fraction of that time." "Necessity drives innovation," Takeda said with a slight shrug. "When you're not welcome at the galactic table, you learn to cook for yourself." Liran detected no bitterness in his tone, merely statement of fact. "The Concord's decision to exclude humanity has been controversial among some of us, and now somewhat ironic," Admiral Chen added from ahead, demonstrating the humans' superior hearing. "Since we're here, and they are not." In the council chamber, the Velrathi technical team presented their complete data on the swarm, its first appearance, movement patterns, consumption methods, and adaptation capabilities. The humans absorbed the information with remarkable speed, asking pointed questions that often surprised the Velrathi with their insight. "The swarm doesn't just consume," Dr. Mbeki observed, studying the holographic representation. "It learns. Each system it devours adds to its collective intelligence. It's not mindless. It's a distributed intelligence growing more sophisticated with each conquest." "Precisely," Elder Morath confirmed. "Our defensive strategies became ineffective as it adapted. Energy shields, quantum disruption fields, even our gravity manipulation systems, all eventually failed." Commander Reyes, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. The woman moved with the precise economy of a career soldier. "Have you attempted physical countermeasures? Kinetic weapons?" The Velrathi exchanged uncomfortable glances. "We have no such weapons," Morath admitted. "Our species abandoned physical warfare 8 centuries ago." Rather than the scorn Liran had feared, Reyes nodded thoughtfully. "That explains the swarm's expansion pattern. It's evolved against energy-based defenses, but may have no experience with kinetic bombardment or molecular disruptors. Our fleet is equipped with multiple weapon systems," Admiral Chen explained, "including several that don't rely on energy projection, but will need to coordinate closely with your people. The swarm will reach this system in 22 cycles," Liran provided. "About 18 Earth days," Lieutenant Wong translated for his colleagues. "Not much time," Chen said grimly. "We need to establish a joint command center immediately and begin defensive preparations. Commander Reyes will coordinate with your defense directors." High Elder Nevix's compound eyes reflected the holographic swarm. "We have sophisticated monitoring systems, but little offensive capability. How can we assist your military efforts?" "Knowledge is a weapon, Elder," Chen replied. "Your understanding of the swarm's behavior patterns, your sensor technology, your scientists, all critical to victory. This fight belongs to both our species." As the strategic discussion continued, Professor Takeda approached the technical displays showing the Velrathi's quantum communication network. "Your quantum entanglement technology is far more advanced than ours," he observed to the chief technician. "With modifications, we might be able to use it to disrupt the swarm's collective consciousness." The chief technician's antennae perked with interest. "A fascinating hypothesis. Our attempts to interfere with its communications have failed, but perhaps with your different approach. Soon, humans and Velrathi were deep in technical discussions, barriers of species and culture temporarily forgotten in the face of shared purpose. Liran watched with amazement as the humans effortlessly integrated themselves into the planning process, their direct manner initially jarring to the formal Velrathi, but quickly proving effective. They adapt quickly, Elder Tevith commented quietly to Liran. As do we, Liran replied, observing how the Velrathi technicians were already adjusting to the humans' pace. Perhaps that will save us both. 3 days later, Velrathi Prime had transformed. Human shuttles moved constantly between the orbital fleet and the surface, bringing equipment and personnel. A joint command center had been established in what was once the Harmony Dome, the Velrathi's most sacred cultural site, now repurposed for war. Inside the dome, Admiral Chen and Ambassador Liran stood before a massive holographic display, showing the approaching swarm at the edge of the system. Advanced scouts will reach our outer defensive perimeter in approximately 6 hours, Chen said, his voice calm despite the gravity of the situation. We've positioned our stealth frigates to engage and assess their current capabilities. The evacuation of the outer moons is proceeding, Liran reported, but many Velrathi refuse to leave. They wish to stay and help. Chen raised an eyebrow. Without combat training. Our people are learning quickly, Liran said with pride. Many have volunteered to assist your crews, to maintain equipment, to serve in any capacity they can. They want to defend their home. A small smile touched Chen's lips. I understand that sentiment perfectly, Ambassador. A commotion at the entrance drew their attention. Dr. Mbeki and a team of Velrathi biological specialists hurried in, their expressions urgent. Admiral, Ambassador, Mbeki called. We've made a breakthrough in understanding the swarm's biology. The holographic display shifted to show microscopic images of swarm matter. The swarm isn't a single entity as we first thought, Mbeki explained. It's a symbiotic relationship between two distinct organisms, one that consumes matter and another that processes energy. They share a distributed nervous system that allows for coordinated action across vast distances. How does this help us? Chen asked. The connection between the two organisms occurs at a specific electromagnetic frequency, the lead Velrathi biologist explained, his carapace vibrating with excitement. If we can disrupt that frequency, we can break the symbiosis, Mbeki finished. It won't destroy the swarm, but it will drastically reduce its coordination and adaptation abilities. Chen's eyes lit up. Can we weaponize this discovery? Professor Takeda is already working with the Velrathi quantum engineers to modify their communication network, Mbeki confirmed. We'll need to get close enough to saturate the swarm with the disruption signal. That's our job, Chen said firmly. Good work, Doctor. This could change everything. As Mbeki's team departed, Liran noticed tension in Chen's posture. Something troubles you, Admiral. Chen hesitated, then gestured to a private conference area. Once they were alone, he spoke frankly. Ambassador, I need to be honest with you. Even with this breakthrough, we're facing a difficult battle. The swarm outnumbers us, and if our first engagement doesn't go well, we'll need to adjust our strategy quickly. You mean retreat? Liran asked, her inner membranes flickering with concern. I mean adaptation, Chen corrected. Something humans excel at. But I need your people to trust us, even if our methods seem unconventional. Liran studied the human admiral. In just days, he had earned her respect with his intelligence, directness, and unwavering commitment. The Velrathi have placed our survival in your hands. Admiral, we will follow your lead. Chen nodded gratefully. Then let's hope our first contact with the enemy gives us the information we need. The first engagement came sooner than expected. The swarm scouts altered course suddenly, bypassing the outer sensor net and heading directly for the third moon of Velrathi Prime, where a major evacuation was still underway. In the command center, Organized chaos erupted as the human tactical team responded with practiced efficiency. Stealth frigates Horizon and Daedalus moving to intercept, Commander Rice reported. Strike groups 2 and 4 providing backup. All other vessels maintained defensive formation around the primary evacuation corridors. On the main display, they watched as human vessels engaged the swarm scouts. 12 massive, purple-veined organisms that moved with unsettling coordination. The human ships fired conventional energy weapons first, testing the swarm's current defenses. As expected, the energy beams were absorbed with minimal damage. But when the frigate switched to kinetic projectiles, massive tungsten rods accelerated to near-relativistic speeds. The effect was devastating. The projectiles tore through the swarm matter, dispersing its cohesion. "It works," exclaimed a Velrathi technician. "They have no defense against physical impact." "Don't celebrate yet," Rice cautioned. "Watch." The damaged swarm entities began to reshape themselves, growing dense outer layers that resembled armor. Within minutes, the next barrage of kinetic weapons caused significantly less damage. "They're adapting," Chen observed grimly. As expected, move to Phase 2. The human vessels shifted tactics again, now deploying what they called molecular disruptors, weapons that attacked matter at the atomic level, preventing the swarm from maintaining cohesion. Again, the initial attacks were successful, then less so as the swarm adapted. This deadly dance continued for nearly 3 hours. Human ships would deploy a new weapon system, gain temporary advantage, then adjust as the swarm evolved countermeasures. Throughout it all, the human fleet maintained its protective position around the evacuation routes, prioritizing civilian safety over offensive advantage. Liran watched in awe as the human commanders made split-second decisions, communicating in short, precise terms. There was no panic, no hesitation, just the fluid efficiency of warriors who had trained for exactly this kind of adaptive combat. "The evacuation is complete," a Velrathi coordinator announced finally. "All civilians are clear of the third moon. All vessels execute Maneuver Delta 6, Admiral Chen ordered. Draw the swarm away from population centers." The human fleet moved in perfect coordination, creating what appeared to be a vulnerability in their formation, a deliberate weakness designed to tempt the swarm away from Velrathi settlements. The strategy worked. The swarm scouts abandoned their attack on the moon and pursued the retreating human vessels. Once the swarm was committed to the pursuit, a second group of human ships emerged from hiding behind Velrathi Prime's largest moon. They launched a devastating attack on the swarm's flank, using multiple weapon systems simultaneously to prevent adaptation. "Now," Chen commanded. Professor Takeda activated the modified quantum communication system. A wave of disruption energy washed over the battlefield, invisible to the eye, but devastating to the swarm's symbiotic connection. The effect was immediate. The swarm entities lost coordination, their movements becoming erratic and uncoordinated. "Hit them with everything," Rice ordered. The human fleet unleashed its full arsenal on the disorganized swarm scouts. Without their collective intelligence to coordinate adaptation, the entities were overwhelmed. Within minutes, the battlefield was clear. In the sudden silence of the command center, Velrathi and humans alike stared at the display in shock. Then a cheer erupted, the first victory against the swarm in months of constant defeats. This was just the vanguard, Chen reminded them, his voice cutting through the celebration. The main swarm will have sensed their scouts' destruction. They'll come in force now, and they'll be prepared for our disruption technique. "But we've proven they can be defeated," Liran said, her voice filled with newfound determination. "Together." Chen nodded, a tired smile crossing his face. "Yes, Ambassador. Together. That's the only way any of us survive what's coming." As the command center returned to preparation mode, Liran observed how the Velrathi and human teams now worked seamlessly together, the initial awkwardness replaced by mutual respect. Her people were learning the humans' direct communication style, while the humans had begun to appreciate the Velrathi's methodical approach to problem-solving. Two species that had never met before this crisis were becoming something new, an alliance born of necessity, but growing into something that felt like more. And for the first time, Liran allowed herself to imagine a future beyond survival, a future where these unlikely allies might reshape the very galactic concord that had abandoned them both. Humanity unleashed. The victory against the Swarm Scouts provided a crucial morale boost, but the respite was brief. 7 days after the initial engagement, long-range sensors detected the main swarm force entering the system. Thousands of bioships ranging from frigate size to massive dreadnoughts larger than small moons. In the Joint Command Center, the mood was somber but determined as Admiral Chen addressed the assembled human and Velrathi leadership. The swarm has committed its entire force, Chen began, his voice steady. Our scouts report they've abandoned the previously conquered systems to focus all their resources here. They recognize us as an existential threat. Is that good or bad? Elder Tevith asked. Both, Commander Reyes replied. Good because they're no longer conquering new territory. Bad because we're facing their collective entirety. The swarm has adapted to our disruption frequency, Professor Takeda reported. They've modified their symbiotic connection to operate across multiple bands simultaneously. We can still disrupt them, but the effect will be reduced and temporary. High Elder Nevix's compound eyes reflected the holographic swarm approaching their world. What are our chances, Admiral? Speak plainly. Admiral Chen looked at the ancient Velrathi leader with respect. If this were a conventional enemy, I would rate our chances as minimal. We're outnumbered at least 20 to 1. But the swarm isn't conventional. It's a single intelligence spread across thousands of bodies. That gives us an advantage it doesn't understand. Unpredictability, Liran realized. Exactly, Chen nodded. The swarm learns and adapts quickly, but it thinks as one mind. Humans have been fighting each other for millennia. We understand how to think differently from our opponents, and the Velrathi bring technological and scientific capabilities we've never had access to. Together, we represent something the swarm has never encountered. A plan born of two worlds, Morath said thoughtfully. 3 days until they reach our defensive perimeter, Commander Reyes reminded them. We need to finalize our strategy. Chen activated the tactical display. We'll deploy in 3 defensive spheres. The outer sphere will be primarily automated drones and mines, sacrificial systems to gauge the swarm's current capabilities. The middle sphere will consist of our main combat fleet, using rotating weapon systems to slow their adaptation. The inner sphere will protect Velrathi Prime itself. And the disruption technology? Liran asked. Professor Takeda stepped forward. We've developed what we call pulse bombs, devices that generate rapidly changing disruption frequencies. They won't disable the swarm completely, but they'll create momentary weaknesses we can exploit. We've also modified 70% of the human fleet's weapon systems to work in concert with Velrathi quantum technology, Dr. Mbeki added. The integration isn't perfect, but it creates attack patterns the swarm won't have encountered before. High Elder Nevix raised his frail hand. The Velrathi have contributed what we can to this fight. Our technology, our knowledge, our facilities. But I feel we must do more. We have no warriors, but we have billions of citizens who wish to defend their home. Admiral Chen nodded respectfully. Elder, your people have already done more than you know. The volunteer crews working alongside our technicians have doubled our operational capacity. But you're right, there is something more the Velrathi can do. He turned to the holographic display, highlighting the crystalline architecture of the capital city. Your urban structures incorporate quantum communication technology, correct? The same technology we've modified for our disruption fields. Yes, confirmed the Velrathi chief engineer. The entire city is essentially a massive quantum network. Then, with your permission, Chen said, we'd like to convert your capital city into the largest disruption transmitter ever created. When the time is right, It could give us the edge we need. The Velrathi council members exchanged glances, communicating in the subtle bioluminescent patterns invisible to human eyes. Finally, Nivik spoke. Our city was built to celebrate peace. How fitting that it should now become our greatest weapon in war. You have our permission, Admiral. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Human engineers worked alongside Velrathi technicians to modify the quantum network running through the capital. Combat vessels were positioned according to the defensive plan. Evacuation ships stood ready to save as many civilians as possible should the defense fail. Ambassador Liren found herself working closely with Admiral Chen, coordinating between human military and Velrathi civilian authorities. Late on the eve of battle, she found the Admiral alone on an observation platform, looking up at the night sky where the human fleet was visible as moving points of light. You should rest, Admiral, Liren said softly. Tomorrow will demand everything from all of us. Chen turned, offering a tired smile. An old human tradition, Ambassador. The night before battle, the commander worries so the soldiers can sleep. Liren moved to stand beside him, her translucent skin glowing softly in the moonlight. Another reason the Concord misjudges humanity. They see your capacity for violence but miss your capacity for care. The two are connected for us, Chen admitted. We fight hardest for what we love most. May I ask you something, Admiral? Something personal. Chen nodded. Why did you come? Not humanity as a whole, but you specifically. You lead your fleet into a battle with terrible odds, for a species you never knew existed a month ago. Chen was quiet for a long moment. There's an ancient human philosophy called Ubuntu. It roughly translates to I am because we are. The idea that our humanity is tied to how we treat others, that we exist fully only through our connections to other beings. He looked up at the stars again. When we received your distress call, I volunteered because I believe the universe is better with the Velrathi in it. Simple as that. Liren's bioluminescence pulsed with emotion. Whatever happens tomorrow, know that you have changed us forever. Not just by saving us, if we are saved, but by showing us another way to exist. The Velrathi abandoned strength for wisdom, but perhaps wisdom without strength cannot survive. And strength without wisdom destroys itself, Chen added. Perhaps that's why our paths crossed, Ambassador, each with what the other needed. Before Liren could respond, Lieutenant Wang's voice came through Chen's communicator. Admiral, long-range sensors show the swarm accelerating. They'll reach our outer defenses in 6 hours, not 12. Chen's expression hardened instantly, the contemplative commander replaced by the warrior. Sound general quarters. All personnel to battle stations. I'm on my way. As they hurried back to the command center, Liren felt a strange calm descend. Whatever happened now, the Velrathi would face it standing alongside the